DLC. It's a tricky subject. Some hate it, and some don't mind it, and yeah. And with DLC came microtransactions, which is, without a doubt, the worst of it. The kind of shit you would see in mobile games, which is now leaked into our AAA games. Be truly honest, I don't mind DLC. Like basically stuff made after the full game was released. Basically, not stuff that's already on the disc and then released as DLC, which is pretty much what Capcom did with like fucking Street Fighter Cross Tekken. But yeah, real actual DLC I don't mind, but and when I mean DLC, I don't mean small shit. I don't mean small little weapons or hats or clothing or like trivial shit that doesn't even matter, like $1 or $2, $3 for a small thing. I'm sorry, that shit should have been in there to begin with, okay? Like, I mean, if you don't want to, like, what's the point of selling them if they can't be in the game in the first place? Like, I've seen games that have small little bits of items for stuff in the game and sold as DLC when a game launches. Like, really? Like, to me, it feels like you took those little bits from the game and just sold it as DLC. Sure, it's just something very minor. It's not like in the case of Destiny where they fucking took the most of its aspects of the story and characters and decided to sell that as DLC. They basically gave us a minimal story and decided to sell us a story later. But still, like, why even bother selling it to begin with? It's just ridiculous. This fucking DLC practice just sometimes, like, terrible DLC practices just ruin it sometimes. Like, but to be fair, there's good DLC, like expansions, if you will. The up and coming Witcher 3 expansions look like great examples of DLC. Same would go for the Skyrim DLCs, Dawnguard and Dragonborn, or I believe that's what the second one was called. I might be wrong on that. Maybe it's called Dragonborn. I think. I'm not sure. Basically, those you could get the very least 10 to 15 hours out of each of those DLCs. While in case of The Witcher, you get, I think one DLC is 40 to 50 hours and one is 20 to 25 hours. I might be extremely wrong on that, so you can correct me on that. And yeah, DLC isn't all bad, but now we move on to microtransactions. Now, we all know what microtransactions is. It's the kind of thing you see a lot in many mobile games today, which they say are quote-unquote free, but now Apple in their Apple Store has now changed it from free to get because they know it's not actually free. Like, if you charge customers a few money at a time just to advance the time of the game because you put so much fucking timers in it, that then it's not really free. Okay, so, like, to me, it feels like those games aren't really made for gamers. Like, for like, people who want, like, actual content, like, actual gameplay, actual great game and story, and actual content, that's not made for you. And I don't understand why these elements seen in mobile games are being incorporated in AAA games. And but I do have somewhat of an idea why those are seen in games nowadays. Today, games, like years ago, games of yesterday were fairly short, but the only reason they were quote unquote long or seemed long to begin with is because of challenge. So Hotline Miami is a short game. Like, can be a very short game if you're really good at it. If you can, like, you can speed run that game. If you go through that entire game without even dying once or going through with not retrying at least once, you could probably complete that within probably an hour at most. Probably an hour or less. And today that's changed. Like, games are very long. Like, like The Witcher 3, for example, which I have for gameplay for this video right now. That game, when I first bought The Witcher 3, I played that game, I got it at launch, and I played it for 2 months. I beat it in the middle of July, because it's filled to the brim with content, and not just useless bullshit. Sure, there's small little shit that you do, like treasure shit, and like rescuing prisoners from bandits and killing certain monsters in certain areas that, yeah, there's small things, but there's the monster contracts, which are good and have cutscenes and stories, and there are many other good side content as well. And I may have missed some during my first playthrough, but I'm now doing my New Game Plus playthrough on Death March, and I'm hoping to do everything, and then I can finally say I completed the game. So yeah, games like that, and games like that take you hours. And if you do not have a lot of time on your hands, like with school and work and all, I think I think that game would probably take you more than 2 months. Like, yeah. So basically, I see why microtransactions exist in AAA games. For some AAA games, I don't agree with it. Like, I would rather take my time with the game rather than buy my way through it. But I somewhat understand why you would buy your way through it, because you don't want to spend hours upon hours upon hours on this game because you have a life, okay? You can't spend all that time just to beat the game. Sure, you can still take your time. It's still going to take you forever. Like, I mean, yeah, so that's what microtransactions are catering towards. It came towards the people who, like, older gamers who don't have the time and have responsibilities. Sure, they'll have time to play for an hour or two, maybe at most, but they have other things to do. And that's why games shorter tend to, and that's why games of multiplayer, that's why first-person shooters tend to be a lot more popular, is because they're shorter camp story-wise, and the multiplayer is can be played in short bursts, if you will. Like, basically, you can play a match and a match and a match, and there you go. Like, same goes with Halo. You can just play in bursts and not think about it. While with a story, it's not really finished. It's like, it's kind of awkward. Like, when you're doing a story, like a narrative-filled game that spans upon hours, it's kind of like weird when you play it for hours at a certain period of time, and then suddenly you spend a certain period of time not playing it, then you come back to it and you're completely lost. I'm sure some of you have been through that. Like I play games, but at certain hours sometimes, but I don't play too long. It really depends on the game for me. Witcher 3 was like a great game, so I obviously played it for hours. I took breaks, sure. Sometimes in certain sections of games it bored me, and then there were some parts where I really got into it with the story, especially with the gameplay, because I really liked the monster contracts and the gameplay. So yeah, basically, so yeah, basically with DLC and all that, it's just microtransactions are a bitch and shitty business practice. While I do understand why some people would use it, but you spend $60 for a reason. You don't spend $60 just so you can spend even more money just to rush your way through it. I just don't really get that. Like, if you're just a person who just doesn't want to do, like put your time and effort into the game, yet, and still rush through it, like, why even pay $60 for it? It's just, why even play it to begin with? I don't get it. So, yeah. Give me a comment, tell me what you think about DLC overall, and I'll see it, probably, yeah. Anyway, I'm TriJello, we'll see you in the next video.